And now we're moving on to our second speaker tonight, Charlotte, joining us from Nairobi, Kenya. She's the founder of Yusudi, an award-winning social enterprise that's training B2B sales professionals through an intensive 6-week virtual program. And Charlotte has founded her company 5 years ago, and they have now trained over 2,000 young people through their programs with an 87% employment rate. She's went for the bootstrapping path, so this is a different path than the Silicon Valley VC route. And here's what we're also here for tonight, to hear different stories and different paths and learn from them. So I'm really excited about what Charlotte is going to share with us, and over to you. Take on the digital stage.
And it's so lovely to see so many people here today. I was really sad I couldn't join the one last month, so I'm happy to be here today and see some familiar faces and some new faces and some names on screens. So as Dora mentioned, my name is Charlotte. I'm calling in from Nairobi, where I live and run my company here. So I'm the co-founder of a company called Yusudi. And I started Yusudi in 2016, actually right after I graduated university. I remember thinking while I was in university, I went on an assignment in Kenya and I loved it. And I did a lot of volunteering in the youth sector and a lot of work around youth unemployment. And at first thought was, I once had a volunteering experience and I did not like my boss at all. And I was like, I'm not made for employment opportunities. I have to be an entrepreneur because I can't deal with authority. So that was how I ended up into entrepreneurship, being like, okay, I can't be employed, which I would challenge that, but that was where I came from, and moved to Kenya right after university with actually not as much of a solution, but more of I understood while being here that the youth unemployment rate is quite high in Kenya. And it's a lot linked to the skills gap that there is between education and the labor market. When you look at a lot of there's not that many people that actually end up going to university, but even going to university, people still have a really hard time to find work because the skills that they gain through academia are not market relevant at all. And so employers don't want to invest in people, and because they say, I'm paying a lot more for a graduate, but at the end of the day, I'm not getting much more skill set. And that's something that I found really intriguing. And it leads me a little bit to, I'm going to kind of have my lessons along the storyline. So it leads me a little bit to my first lesson, which was first lesson that I would share, which is that the most important point to start when it comes to having a company and starting a company is to really understand your problem. What is it? What is a problem that you are trying to solve? And a problem isn't just, oh, I think there's youth unemployment in Kenya. Yes, that's a problem, but it's way too vague to be able to start a company or to have a solution for it. So a problem really goes into digging as deep as possible, writing down any of the assumptions that you have about the problem that you think there is, and then digging deep and asking the questions to people to debunk the assumptions, asking the questions to yourself of like, why do I think that is a reality? When I first came to Kenya for the first 6 months, I did not start the company. I actually just said, I'm going to spend the next 6 months just to talk to people. I'm going to talk to youth. I'm going to talk to companies. I'm going to talk to universities. I'm going to talk to NGOs. I'm going to talk to employers. I'm going to talk to anybody. So every time I would meet somebody, I would say, who are 5 other people I should speak to? And the idea was not to come straight away with a solution. It was to really try and understand from those people, what does this market look like? And in one sense, I had an advantage because I knew from the very beginning, I have not grown up in Kenya. I don't know this market at all. So I know that everything that I base my thoughts on is pure assumption. So I just wrote it all down. And then every time I would meet somebody, I would explore that and build those assumptions more up to a point where some things started to become more concrete. And the solution of Yusudi and what was built was actually only happened after about 5 months of going deeper and deeper into the questions around the problem, and then at the end realizing, okay, this is something that could be a solution. Like what we realize is that there are other people out there doing what we're doing, but often they don't provide employment opportunities right after. And we said, we know that we need to, the problem is that there's many training programs, but none of those training programs end up guaranteeing employment. So people just go hop from training program to training program to training program and are still unemployed. So we said, okay, this is something that's really important. We realize that a lot of youth don't have money because they've just graduated from university, they have debt. And so how is it that we can build a model that's affordable for them without it's completely taking all of our money on our side? We still want to be sustainable. So we build a model by which a young person pays a part up front, and all the rest is taken as commissions once we find them employment. And if we don't find them employment, then they don't have to pay the rest. So our success metrics, we have alignment when it comes to the success, because we only get our money if we place people, and young people want to get placed, and that's why they join the training program. So it's a risk that we take, but it's also a guarantee that we can give to the young people. So this is where really I learned that you can never, well, you can spend too much time on the problem, but it's important to really dig into that phase. The second reason why it's so important to focus on the problem rather than the solution is because your market changes. And you look at a lot of successful companies, actually, when you look at how they were when they just started versus who they are today, you realize that there's been many pivots. And it's much harder to pivot when you feel incredibly attached to one single solution rather than to the market that you're trying to serve. And so what you want to do is that you want to stay in touch with the market that you're trying to serve, so that the solution that you're offering shifts with the needs of your market. And that's when you can stay relevant over time. So that's kind of the first lesson that I've had over time. As Dora mentioned, Yusudi was bootstrapped. So we found a solution, started implementing that solution, and decided to kind of start when we had our first paying customers. That's only when we decided to get an office, because we couldn't afford an office before we had a few people paying so that we can afford rent. So a lot of things were linked to thinking really strategically about where do we spend our time. And something really interesting that I came across my journey is how much you can do in kind. There are so many, when we just started the company, the main people that were working with us were all volunteers. And what we did is we took university graduates and we said, look, we know you're struggling to find work. We can't pay you, but we will give you growth currency. And I've really loved that concept of you have current financial currency and you have growth currency. And growth currency is, once I would tell every person volunteering, saying 6 months, I can guarantee you will get a job that will pay you 5 times more than if you didn't go through working with us, volunteering with us. And because we will invest our time, our energy into making you an amazing trainer, an amazing marketer, an amazing salesperson, because we can't afford to pay you, we'll do that in kind. So that was one area in which I realized there's so much that you can do with getting volunteers. The same thing with like spaces to work from. We would go and we would be quite good at delivering trainings. And so we would go to co-working spaces and say, look, can we work from here, so long as we deliver some trainings for the people that are also part of your co-working space. And in a sense, like when you don't have all the money in the world, you start thinking differently about your resources, and you start realizing that actually there's so much you can do without the money, because other people have the same thing and everybody has different skill sets. So how is it that you can combine those skill sets? We use a lot the training aspect. We're like, okay, we can't afford an accountant, so let's get this accountant to work for us and we'll train his team in exchange. Like those kind of things. Like think creatively about how you spend, like about the capital that you have, not the financial capital, but the soft capital that you have, that you can give to others and that they can share their capital back to you, and use that as an initial kind of growth. Of course, there's a time when you need to start just doing, but initially it's a great way to not spend a lot of money before you know for sure this is going to work. So that's the second part. There is one component of bootstrapping that I have very much underrated, and I think it's not just linked to bootstrapping, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs face this. But for me, it was very specific to just feeling like I didn't have the capacity, the team capacity. My team wasn't skilled enough to do a lot of big parts of the work that I needed them to do. So there's so much more that fell onto me and my co-founder. And when I started Yusudi, the reason why I mentioned that it was just after university, and I had this idea, I was just like, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to start this company because I'm lucky enough not to have debt from my university. I don't have a partner right now. I don't have kids. I'm quite flexible as to where I can live. I have a bit of savings that I can use. So let me just do this. There's nothing I can lose. In the worst case scenario, it's going to be a great learning opportunity. And I think it took me quite a few years to come to the awareness that actually there's really, really important part to lose. And that's actually my own sanity and basically myself. Because running the company and doing everything, I was just, let's just work and work and work, and this has to be done, I'll do it. And friends don't matter because everything I should do is about building business partnerships, and I don't have the money to spend to do the activities that I want to do, so I'm just going to stay at home and do some more work and read about work and do the work and then strategy think about the work, and basically just turn around in circles on everything to do with my startup. And my startup becomes me and I am my startup, and there is no difference. I can see Dora laughing and I wonder if you're like, oh my God, this is me. Basically, I did not see a difference between Yusudi and myself. It was like, we are one, but that meant everything to do with it. And it took me in a really dark place because the biggest part is that I didn't know myself enough to see the signs. And the signs for me were actually pretty clear, but I was very stubborn. I started getting sick quite often. I would have issues with UTIs, which are quite common in women, but especially common when you have more stress. I haven't had some in a few years, but at the time, I would have them twice a month, 3 times a month. And every time you're on antibiotics, and that impacts your gut. And then when your gut is in a bad place, you get stomach issues. And so I actually started having a lot of health issues. And I always just thought I can link it to something, like it's something that I ate. It's because I didn't drink enough water. It's because of this. And it took me a long time to come to the reality that no, it's my lifestyle that's leading my immune system to not be strong enough to deal with the bacteria. And yes, like Kenya it's very different food, it's very different water, so my immune system is already like not really used to this environment, and I'm really putting it under a lot of stress. And so there's a list of questions that I've kind of put that I wanted to share with you to think about. And the first one is, how do you know when you've crossed the border of self, like when you've crossed the border of your own well-being? What are the signs that your body gives you? And I'm not talking about your mind, because actually our body tends to be first when it comes to telling us something. And because we can tell ourselves so many stories. And so I really want to think about like, what are the signs that your body gives you that says, hey, it's time to take a break? And a really nice way to reflect on that is past situations where you might be stressed, like you were in exam periods or you were like in these areas, like what are the patterns that your body showed at that time? And those patterns might have been way more accentuated because the stress was higher. But now look at those and maybe the smaller aspects. They might not come. It might not be that you fall suddenly super ill. It might be smaller signs, but really connect with your body to understand what those are. The second thing is, what gives you energy and what takes energy from you? I think I didn't think enough about, I just thought for the longest time, I have to do everything. And I did not reflect on what do I enjoy doing, what do I not enjoy doing, once I've done something, what leaves me depleted and what leaves me excited. Because I was like, it doesn't matter because it just has to be done. And the problem when you do that is that you move away from getting to know yourself better and building a team around your strengths and building a team around what gives you energy and what doesn't give you energy, and make sure that you combine that together with the team that you work with, and you just exhaust yourself. And at the end of the day, like, the way that burnouts actually work and anxiety works is you kind of have your barometer, and you have things that take from you and things that give you. And if you are completely, if you're always giving, but you're not getting the energy back, that's when you feel exhausted. That's when your body starts saying, I can't do this anymore because I don't have the energy. And this doesn't mean that you shouldn't like work all the time, but it means that you should think strategically about how you work. You should do the things that give you energy, because those are the things that are going to be sustainable to you, not the things that you just have to do because you think you should. The third one are, how are ways in which you cheat when you feel bad? So for me, when I'm starting not to feel very well, I tend to escape. And that escapes can come out in multiple ways. It can be, I just cannot deal with, I start to feel like tired. And so instead of like thinking the really good thing for me to do would be to drink a glass of water or to spend some time with people that I love, to do some reflections and to go to bed early, I'll like start watching a TV show, and I will like stay up until 5 a.m. watching the TV show because I cannot deal with my own emotion and I cannot deal with my own thoughts. And in a sense, like I want to escape the fact that this is hard, that I'm in a hard place emotionally. So it's really, it's nice to keep that kind of, what I've started building is a list of like, this is what I tend to go towards. This is what would be much better for me. And it's harder to start doing, but when you do it, you actually feel better much faster. You don't end up being weeks and weeks into this depressive, I can't do this, like I feel so heavy, because you've taken care of yourself. It's your little self-care list versus self-destruction list. And see where you're going towards, and see and find one that complements the other, and maybe find somebody that can help you with that as well, that knows like, have you been watching TV all day? You're like, no, I haven't. I think you have. Maybe we should go out and have a cup of tea. Okay, maybe that can help. You don't have to do it all on your own. So those are some of the questions that have really helped me. And the only thing I can say is, I wish somebody told me how important you are, how important I am, that if I burn myself out, then it doesn't matter that I have a company. It doesn't matter that my company exists, because there's not like, because I'm not there to see it succeed. I'm not there to see it thrive because I'm miserable myself. And when I was going through my burnout, and I'm only just recovering from it, and it's been 3 years. So really the choices that you make, the big thing with burnout and the big thing with that heaviness, and when you wait and you don't do anything, is that it doesn't just solve itself in a week. It doesn't just solve itself in a month. It's something that once you've pushed your body, and once you've pushed yourself over and over the border all the time, it will take you a really, really, really long time to recover from it. And that takes patience, and it takes constantly feeling like, why am I not just feeling normal? And so I can only say, like, please start with that in your head. Don't put your business before yourself, because it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. So after my phase of burnout, I took more care of myself, still learning, but took more care of myself. And as the business was growing, and Yusudi is now a team of 25, we've come to a place where we're about 70% sustainable on our own. We do get some grant funding. And there's a phase about 2 years ago that I thought, you know what, maybe we should raise investment. Maybe as we kind of have set some more numbers, as we have grown quite a bit more, maybe this is a good time to try and get some money to be able to grow the company. So we decided who is going to be leading the fundraising, and I was picked as I'm going to lead the fundraising. And honestly, did not know what I was getting myself into, and learned a lot about the world of investment and just the world of money in general, the world of your, like, going beyond just thinking about my end user, thinking about everything else around it. And what I learned at that point is that the world is run by people that know how to sell themselves, not people that know how to build a really good company. Like, what happened is, it didn't matter that my company was sustainable. It didn't matter that we had really high impact and really high employability levels. It mattered more about who I knew and who trusted me. Every time I would speak to an investor, I would speak to a donor, it was about who introduced us, who introduced me to the donor, who are the people, who are the big names that we are working with, what are going to be the big numbers. And what I realized is that the first thing is, you need to think really well about, why are you building this company? Are you building it just for yourself, to sustain yourself? Are you building it because you want to sell it? Are you building it because you want to grow it into a worldwide multi-billion company? Are you building it because you want impact? Are you building it as a life project that you're really passionate about? Because depending on that, you need to mold, you build your company differently. I've seen startups that have raised millions of dollars with just an idea, right? Because they, from the very beginning, were like, I'm building a company to sell it. I'm building a company to have an IPO. And what that means is that I need investor money from the beginning, and I can sell that to investors. But I realized that the kind of company that I built was not a company that was going to get an IPO. It's a company that is about impact. That's about, I don't care if I reach millions of people. I care that the people that I reach, that I give them the most amazing experience, and that I change their life. And I go to an investor and they ask me for numbers. And I'm like, that's great. Like, we have impacted a lot of people, but I don't want to just put these people into a box of, now you're a part of a number. And it doesn't matter what kind of experience you had, because the only thing that the investor wants to know is that there's more and more numbers that are coming. I want to know that you are human, that I'm changing. You're a human that I'm helping grow. And so I would say, think about the type of company that you want to build, because it requires you to make specific choices around how you build your company, and around how you sell to investors. And sales is incredibly important, because, as I said, the world is really run by people who know how to sell themselves. One of the reasons why we ended up deciding, so we just started the company, we did general soft skills. And then over time, we started realizing that actually training young people how to sell, one, it's a very attractive job to have because it's not that technical, but there's a lot of demand for salespeople. But a second thing is that every single day of your life, you sell yourself. And when you run a company, you sell yourself. When you want to find a job, you sell yourself. When you want to get a raise, you sell yourself. And at the end of the day, that's just it. And I realized that if I train young people in sales, they will know how to sell themselves before they know how to sell anything else. And when I running my company, I realized that I can put a lot of time into the customer, into everything. But if I don't know how to sell to them, if I don't know how to build value for them and show them what value I'm bringing, nothing is going to happen. And as a founder of a company, I'm the face of that. I need to know, how do I sell this product? I need to know, how do I sell this service to my customers, to my partners, to investors, to whoever is going to get involved. And so if you don't feel like you are comfortable in selling yourself, if you feel like sales is not really my strength, I would say you should learn it. You should just practice with people around, get feedback, get to know how to do good sales. I'm really happy to chat with any of you after this, because it will be much more extensive on sales in particular. But know that before you start anything, regardless of which position you are in, you are a founder, and therefore you're the face of your company, and you need to know how to sell it. And so you got to take a pause and think, how are my sales skills? And if they're not excellent, then you should think about, how do I improve them, and how do I do something about that? That's my talk for today. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for this amazing talk. Yeah, clapping. 100% relatable, especially the burnout part. I think this is a crucial topic that just almost nobody talks about, because most people cannot actually afford to talk about it in the first place, because they're either employed or they have investors or whatever. So thank you a lot for sharing your experience with that and your advice earned from experience. If you have any questions, shoot now.
I'm Dina, and I really liked your story, and I think it's very, very insightful, because normally during speeches focused on startups, you usually do not hear about this emotional or feeling side of self-care. Thank you. And one point that I was very interested in to know, could you share one story when you were building the team based on the strengths and weaknesses that you have? It was a very interesting point for me. I would like to hear something in detail. Or you were mentioning about like what feeds your energy and how you choose people around you.
So I think a really kind of example for me was, this is very concrete, but I really don't like accounting. And I think for the longest time, when I was running the company, I thought, because I'm the founder, because I'm the CEO, I need to do all the numbers. I need to have like really tight view of the accounts. And I would have these mild panic attacks on like the second, every end of the month, where I was like, okay, now I have to reconcile the accounts, and I have to like check all the numbers, and I have to put in all the receipts. And I was like, I just cannot. And it took me a long time to realize, like, because I was just like, I have to do it. I have to do it. And I was like, no, but the anxiety is just because I don't know really well how to do it. If I get better, I will be fine, you know. I would get better. And I actually, you know, my accountant said he could hire me. He was like, you're so good, I could hire you. And I was like, okay, I've reached a point where I'm good, and it's still providing me with panic attacks. So I think I have to review how I do accounting. And actually, after about 2 years, my co-founder, who had, we said it was going to be me because of my role. My co-founder was program director, and so she had nothing to do with it, and it was not in her role. She also didn't have a background in business, and I did. But she enjoyed it. Like, I started being like, could you maybe test out doing it? Like, because you like administrative tasks more. And she started doing it, and actually really enjoyed it, because she was like, wow, I love all these numbers, and this is amazing. And I get to, and I was sad that it took me 2 years to take away the idea that I have to do it, you know, and to think that it wasn't, that the reason why I have panic attacks, that I didn't trust the fact that I was having those because I didn't like it. And I thought I was having those and I have to get over it. It's just because I don't know how to do it, you know? And it was actually having conversation with her and kind of observing and removing the titles, removing like, this is what society says a CEO should do. This is what society says a program manager, or like the world of business says a program manager should do, and say, no, it doesn't matter. Like, my title doesn't matter in this case. What matters is that we both do the things that make us feel better, and that we complement each other like that. I don't know. I hope this answers your question.
I feel like everything you said today, I needed to hear. So, wow. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much again.